You may ask, in the spirit of Wesley Hall, sorry Wes, how can I apply the call of Abraham to you and me? How can Matt Mensch ask us to apply Abraham and his life to us now? I mean, he's from thousands of years ago? How can anything that happened to Abraham and this old book be applicable to us? Well, thinking just in context of what Sam said last week about Genesis, how the first 11 chapters of this book relate to our lives, and were foundationally God's explaining himself to his new people that he was calling. This is part of that same book. And so this is, again, God revealing some of himself to us. So that would be the first thing. And also, jumping ahead to the New Testament, we'll see that Jesus says that anyone who believes in him, so this is now the New Testament, is a child of Abraham. Paul confirms this in Galatians, and we can check this out really fast. In Galatians chapter 3, verse 6. Sorry, this is taking a little. Chapter 3, verse 6. So he says, Paul says, just as Abraham believed God, and it was counted to him as righteousness. Know then, it is those of faith who are the sons of Abraham. And the scripture, foreseeing that God would justify the Gentiles by faith, preached the gospel beforehand to Abraham, saying, in you shall all the nations be blessed. So then, those who are of faith are blessed along with Abraham, the man of faith. So those who are of faith, which is Christians, are blessed along with Abraham as Abraham's spiritual descendants later. So the call and the promise that God gave to Abraham apply to all of us Christians, because we are Abraham's descendants in faith. So that's the call. For the promise, it's hugely foundational to our understanding of the whole entire story of Israel, of Christ, and of the church. It's so important, in fact, that God revisits this covenant promise with Abraham 6 more times in Genesis, most significantly in chapter 17, that you might want to check out if you have a chance to reread it. There you'll see that it's clearly a covenant promise, namely that God will do these things, the promise part, give descendants land and blessing, as long as Abraham's descendants worship and obey God and bless those around them. So as we've been going through the Old Testament, as we continue to go through the Old Testament for the rest of this I don't know, it's like another month, watch for these signs, the call and the promise, because they never go away. And see how Israel is doing in light of them and in terms of them. For instance, when we get to Exodus, they're going to follow God's call to leave Egypt, to go out of Egypt. Let my people go, right? Moses says that. But they falter on worship and obedience once they're out, and they say, oh, why didn't you let us stay in Egypt? Remember this and ask yourself what happens when they disobey this covenant, or when they're about to enter the promised land. They falter again, and they say, we can't go into the promised land. Get the promised land away. There are giants in there. We're really scared. See again what happens. There are some really negative consequences. Okay, so now that we've looked a little bit at Abraham's call, let's take a little bit more closer look at him as a person. Next to if you have that Patriarchs, they're not who you think they are sheet, right next to that, that Abraham was a bumbling, cowardly fool. Who is Abraham? When we think of biblical characters, Abraham is one of the big names of our faith. Who is Abram, that God should call him? A man of faith, right? A man among men. No, wrong. That's how we know him now, how we think of him now. But he started off as a troublemaking, cowardly fool. Listen to this. This is Genesis chapter 12, verses 10 through 20. Now there was a famine in the land, so Abram went down to Egypt to sojourn there, for the famine was severe in the land. When he was about to enter Egypt, he said to Sarai his wife, I know that you are a woman beautiful in appearance, and when the Egyptians see you, they will say, this is his wife. Then they will then they will kill me, but they will let you live. So, say that you are my sister, that it may go well with me because of you, that my life may be spared for your sake. When Abraham entered Egypt, the Egyptians saw that the woman was indeed very beautiful. And when the princes of Pharaoh saw her, they praised her to Pharaoh. And the woman was taken into Pharaoh's house. And for her sake, he dealt well with Abram as his brother. And he had sheep, oxen, male donkeys, male servants, female donkeys, and camels. So Abram basically got rich. But the Lord afflicted Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarai, Abram's wife. So Pharaoh called Abram and said, "What is this you have done to me? Why did you not tell me she was your wife? Why did you say she is my sister, so that I took her for my wife? Now then, here is your wife. Go, take her and go." And Pharaoh gave men orders concerning him, and they sent him away with his wife and all that he had. So Abram treats his wife poorly, first of all, essentially saying that she's not his wife. That's an idiotic plan, and gets Pharaoh cursed by God. See, God is already fulfilling his promise to curse those who curse or transgress against Abram. In fact, this whole section foreshadows a lot of Israel's history, going to Egypt, growing numerous, and then leaving. It comes back. If you've already started Exodus, you're going to see a pattern here. You'll have to read the rest of Abraham's story on your own if you haven't already read it. But what you'll find is that God patiently bears with this troublesome fool over and over. He gives him purpose in life, identity, love to overcome his fears, and he teaches him to trust in God himself. This is what we call faith. Abraham goes from fear and distrust to actually walking with God and partnering with him in his purposes. He learns to take initiative with God, going to him instead of God having to come to him first when he screws up. He moves from foolish, childish behavior to the behavior of a responsible, mature adult.